So we finally got the Backrooms movie. Definitely one of my most anticipated of the year, something that I've been very interested in ever since it was announced. I'm a fan of the YouTube videos. I love the lore, and the Wendigoon video, of course, is a classic. And it came out and it did really well. Biggest opening ever for an original horror movie. And I'm very happy for it. I'm very happy for Kane Parsons because he did knock it out of the park, especially for his age, and just coming out of this as a YouTuber. But I would be lying if I just completely glazed and didn't say I did come out of it a little bit disappointed. This is a concept I've been very interested in for a very long time. Made a video about the Backrooms, I think the potential for a Backrooms movie over 2 years ago. Because it's such an interesting phenomenon. I think the virality of it's very interesting, the concept, and it taps into something so interesting and familiar while also terrifying and claustrophobic. It's a very kind of weird and ethereal idea, but something about it just makes it so interesting that it has such mass appeal and that it's done so well that so many people came out in full support of the movie and were so interested to check it out. I think that's for a number of reasons, and I will say, starting off with what I really appreciate about this movie, and for obvious reasons Kane Parsons is directing it, it really captures the essence of those videos, those original ones that sparked people's interest on YouTube. It just captures that so perfectly that, like I said, the weird vastness of it, the creep factor of the Backrooms, but also the claustrophobia and kind of the mystique surrounding it. It really is such an interesting concept, one that's like both so intangible but so like kind of at the same time a bit easy to understand. The movie's very much focused on selling you on this landscape, the concept, and kind of getting you on board with the imagery. I really do think that's the one thing that I will always take away from this movie, and the one thing that really stuck out to me the most about it was just how much it nails the imagery. I do think at its core it's much more of a visual storytelling movie. There's long sequences of pretty quiet scenes of just characters exploring the Backrooms, kind of trying to test how it works, exploring, figuring things out, and questioning what exactly they are. But I do think it's ultimately where the human drama kind of suffers a bit for me. By no means bad, and I do think that ultimately, especially Chiwetel Ejiofor and the other performances are very good in the movie, but in my opinion, it feels like the most kind of surface level and hollow aspect of the movie. Felt like it wanted to be a little bit more ambitious with the emotional storytelling, or at least the human storytelling, because they wanted to tell more of a story of psychology than something more base level, but sometimes that overambition eventually costs the movie. Because when you reach for something that you can't ultimately deliver on in a substantive way, it can eventually undercut the movie and you're just left with something that feels a little bit more hollow than intended. Not to say that I thought this was a bad movie at all, because there's a lot that I really do appreciate about it. Like I said, I do think that the visual storytelling was amazing, and I think the way that it captures the videos was perfect. Especially on this grand scale. There's a lot of wonder even in just scenes of exploration. The intrigue is just completely on point with this, but like I said, it's ultimately when you get into the psychological aspects of the characters, what they're kind of trying to say on a deeper level, I just think it falls a little bit flat and it feels a little bit surface level. It's definitely not what I'm going to walk away from this movie remembering. And I do think that if it just cut back on its ambition a little bit, if it didn't try to overreach, we would probably have a more concise, a more solid horror movie. There's always a risk, especially with something like the Backrooms, that it could definitely overstay its welcome. Something that can work very well as a creepy 14-minute YouTube video can ultimately fail and feel very boring when it becomes a feature-length movie. And thankfully that's not the case with this, but I do think on the aspects where they did try to stretch the plot a little bit with the characters, it just doesn't come off as ultimately compelling to me, at least overtly so. They probably could have made it a 90-minute movie and tighten a few things up, and it probably would have overall worked better, in my opinion. But I do kind of feel that DNA in the movie that's going for that A24, a little bit more elevated horror, but I just don't think that it ultimately gets to that destination. But obviously it works a lot better than a lot of similar types of movies like this that have tried and failed to do what this movie does. A lot of movies try to take a concept that works, like I said, as a 14-minute YouTube video, but gets boring or overstretched as a feature-length movie. Although I kind of disagree with the assessment, Skinamarink I think is one that a lot of people consider in this category. Something that will work a lot better as a short movie but overstays its welcome as an hour 40-minute long movie. I just kind of see parallels in that. YouTubers that made these kind of nostalgic, weird-looking liminal videos turn them into feature-length movies. You have movies like Night Swim where the main sequence would make an ultimately effective short horror movie, but then when you stretch it out and you bring all these odd aspects to pad out a plot line, it crashes and burns. Backrooms is by no means a misfire. It's by no means anything like that, but I do think that there's aspects of it that just did not work for me. And I didn't ultimately like it as much as I wanted to, because I really did want to like it a lot more than I did. I'd probably give it like a 7 out of 10. I'm very much in the camp that it's a good, solid movie that just ultimately didn't meet my expectations. And that sucks a little bit, especially in the context of we got a Backrooms movie. It's with A24. You got some big stars in it, Mark Duplass, Chiwetel Ejiofor. It's a lot to get excited about. And just when it doesn't quite live up to what I think the potential was of this, it does disappoint me a bit. I definitely see potential though for a franchise or sequels that improve on the aspects of this movie that I didn't think quite worked. Sometimes it can be tough though with a sequel because you use the concept already, so you have to find something equally interesting to escalate, or at least make it scarier. There's always a risk, especially with doing a sequel to something like this, that the sequel just can't really live up to the fact that there's an originality to getting a Backrooms movie for the first time. I think part of that originality is why it did so well. Just sometimes a sequel can't capture that with something like this. This might be also a very weird comparison to make, but I feel like with the Minecraft movie, I just don't see the sequel doing nearly as well, because I think the novelty of a Minecraft movie just scratched that itch, provided that thing that was new, kind of interesting, people were into it, and the sequel just might under-deliver because that scratch has been itched now that we've had that Minecraft movie. Now the Backrooms, now that we've had a Backrooms movie and it's been visualized and it came out and it was cool, it was interesting, might make it hard to top or to garner the same interest in a sequel. But at the same time, especially when you keep such a cheap budget as you do with horror movies, I think there's a lot of room to grow with this concept and to explore it a little bit deeper and explore different characters in this context a little bit deeper. I really would like to see that because there's endless rooms to explore. And I think that if it taps into the existential terror and just continues to visualize this concept in a way that's interesting and provide unique new things to it, I mean, hell, it already made like 10 times its budget opening weekend, so a sequel is probably all but guaranteed at this point. Although I didn't love it and was a little bit let down by it, I still did like it, very much enjoyed it, and I'll probably give it another rewatch to see how I feel or if that changes. But let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I'm GM Light. Have a good one.